Very good afternoon, everyone. Charles here, Throwing on Daily Chart Analysis, Tuesday the 5th of May, 2026. Just approaching a couple of minutes to 2 this afternoon here in Milan. And as a result of it, pretty much raining cats and dogs from the window, I'm pretty active in the markets today. Only one position I've taken thus far, that is what is on screen, GBP US dollars shorts this morning. Currently break even in that trade. I do forecast that to potentially stop me out break even in this this video, to be quite honest. And I'll go through the reasons why I believe so. I'll also go through the reasons why I have felt the need to go break even. So first and foremost, what do we have? Let's take a look at this morning's plays, as we always do. We'll give that a quick refresh to see what was on offer this morning. So a couple of charts posted as always 7 hours ago. Here we are. So potential short-term daily order book refined long, and with the long spoken or speaking about rather, that would have come from this area here. However, my higher time frame bias is most certainly looking for short positions. So it was my job this morning to understand, well, if the long isn't an opportunity that I could take based on where price was, would there be an opportunity on taking a short position? So we had a couple of dilemmas this morning. First of which, how can I look to take that short position? As you'll see here on the 4-hour time frame, there is a valid 4-hour order block up at the highs. However, as you can see, price isn't around that area. If I bring the 15-minute time frame into context and into contention, we can understand now, based on structure, as a result of this red little illustration, why I figured to take GU shorts prior to it actually reaching these highs, which is, in my opinion, the better short position based on that higher time frame analysis. So, as I've mentioned, wasn't trading via a 4-hour order block, but what I had on the side was lower low, lower high, lower low created. And I took this in line with an Asia range setup. As you can see, we've had a break of structure on the 15-minute time frame. Has it broken immediate structure points to the left? And can I identify that price is in a trending market? Absolutely, I can at the moment. So a simple line here would have done it, that we have a break of structure, and then it's down to me to try and give that structure break or find the order block that delivered that break of structure, ideally as high as possible. And with that said, is Asia lows available? As you can see, Asia is still here available, looking for Asia to fill. And then we've got this 15-minute order block that was tapped in past or post London Open. So I was waiting to see how I would be able to take that position. So if I bring myself back to the 4-hour time frame, at the time of looking to take that position, first and foremost, I was in the realms just here, understanding if, and I think it was a couple of minutes to the hour. Let me scroll through the group chat so I can give you guys an insight into what I said this morning. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so I don't want to get, my words were, I don't want to get caught out entering early, so waiting for a move away from the area, potentially a closure below the 4-hour 50 EMA. That will then leave a wick high of the closure of the 4-hour candle. That would then align with the lower time frames, and I'll look to short. I said an alternative view, a bearish engulfing now 15-minute order block short, and then you would just have to hope that the 4-hour candle would reject that 4-hour 50 EMA in the final 15-minute candle of the 4-hour. Then what I thought to say also was, you can also look to take this in the realms of a Asia range that doesn't take into consideration, in my opinion, any of the higher time frame bias. Trading an Asia range strategy is a standalone strategy that I trade alongside my higher time frame directional trading. Therefore, as a result of price actually then closing above that 4-hour 50 EMA, I then recognize, if you bring your attention to the 4-hour time frame, that my short position, if I was taking it in line with just structure and in line with anticipating that the move itself could then bring its short all the way down to these lows, I'd be slightly incorrect, and my management style would have to be different if I want to take that differently.
As a result of that 4-hour candle closing above the 4-hour 50 MA, what I was expecting, and I still am expecting, and what I was expecting is actually what has occurred, is we've closed above the 4-hour 50 MA, price has then dipped back into the 4-hour 50 MA, and we're potentially looking to go slightly higher. Hence why I'm now break even in that position, just to safeguard my thought process and understanding in the technicals. So at the moment, that's the only position that I have taken. It was an Asia range short on GU, and as you can see by these annotations, that it's not as simple as order block, Asia, break of structure. You still must wait for that entry criteria to present itself before then looking to take the position. At the moment, still haven't been taken out break even, so I'm just going to move that alert down and see what we have. So that was the first and only trade actually of the week. I know it's only Tuesday, so it's not quite great going, but yeah, first trade of the week, break even thus far. Now, what's also nice to see is a high degree of confluence by way of taking that Asia range position, because as I said, I did have my reservations taking it. I recognize that if I do need to take it, I need to be slightly aggressive in my management. If I don't take it using an Asia range criteria, which I would have certainly been stopped out break even by now. Alternatively, trading it as an Asia range, as I said, doesn't take into consideration that 4-hour 50 MA. It's simply my screens, one 15-minute chart, and that's all it is. However, or in addition, I should say, looking at the chart on the DXY, of course, long-term looking bullish, but in terms of the intricacies, I was looking to find whether I also have confluence for actually taking that Asia range position as well, i.e., is the DXY in a nice area to at least provide me with a reaction. So what we have here, also an order block, just mimicking GU pretty much to perfection, an order block under Asia, which has caused a break of structure to the left. You can see that quite clearly on the 15-minute time frame. Price came into that order block, it pushed away, and then I was looking to see whether or not, I think this is on a lower time frame, potentially the 5-minute by the looks of it, but the crux of the story is looking to see if this area would hold. Once we had the push off that area around about 11 o'clock, I believe, here it is. This is the candle that I then entered on GU short, or in fact, the next candle. So as a result of price holding on that 5-minute order block, I think it was, or probably it's 15, it's just moved slightly like so. Then I then entered that long position without any real hesitation, to be quite honest. So that's just using the DXY as good confluence to take that GU short. Now, the fact I mentioned AU is very much so on my mind at the moment, so we'll head over to AU in just a moment, but also understanding where we are on the DXY is very important. We've now fully closed above that 4-hour 50 EMA. We rejected it with the last 4-hour candle as expected once price has closed above yesterday. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're just respecting that 4-hour 50 MA towards the upside and expecting just price to be dipping slightly into it, below it, find the liquidity and move off to the highs. And that's exactly what we have here. And you can see that very nicely illustrated on those lower time frames. So that's the DXY. That's GU that I'm currently in at the moment, and AUD/USD. I had a very good question in the community. Would I be looking to take AUD/USD in terms of short using an Asia range criteria? Very, very, very good question. Also, there was an addition in that question that we do have the 4-hour 50 EMA on side as a confluence to actually look for price to be driven lower, or have the confidence rather that the fact that price is currently above that 4-hour 50 EMA, that's where we want to be by looking for short positions, recognizing that now we have 54 minutes for potentially price to look to close below that 4-hour 50 EMA rejected to the downside. So I still think that AU has a very good setup short. However, as you'll see here, if you disregard all of my morning's illustrations, there wasn't a 15-minute order block to short from that was available come London Open or even come now. I'll put those in so you can have a look. So we had a structure that was broken in Asia. this order block is far too large to be using. However, we have also closed above that now anyway, so it's as simple as simply getting rid of that. Then secondly, we had this area up at these highs, which is a very, very good area, and price is failing to close above it convincingly. However, the difference is now that this order block has been used, it's been mitigated once, twice, thrice, and therefore, for me, it's an area in the market, but an area that at the moment is still yet to prove itself. So my response to whether an Asia range could be available is that, well, Asia range itself is available. Therefore, the Asia range to be filled is most certainly a confluence for taking that position. However, how I would look to take that position prematurely, i.e. not taking it from the position that I've analysed this morning, is I'm really going to have to see something different. And what that would be now, even come to the chart, I want to see this area broken convincingly. Once that area is broken, I'd like to see a 15-minute order block left behind. Then I'll be looking for a lower time frame confirmation before then looking for a short position, if I so please. Alternatively, based on my higher time frame analysis, there's a much better area in my opinion. Previous daily imbalance, you can see just here by that red arrow that's showing on the bottom right hand chart, the daily time frame. That's the imbalance of the previous daily candle, which essentially is just an order block, but notwithstanding clogging up the charts, I haven't put the order block in there. And with that said, on the 15-minute, we are around the area. If you just take a look at my crosshair where that shows up, there is also not a 4-hour order block within that area either. Therefore, it becomes a bit of a nearly area, and therefore I've got to rely on structure itself, and I also have to rely on my setup criteria as well as entry criteria quite heavily, as well as the confluence across the other cross pairs such as GU, EU, and the DXY as an index to see if it makes sense to actually short from that area. So at the moment, no position on AU for myself. I'd be more inclined to just sit back, wait for price to come up here. If it does, I'll more than likely be stopped out, break even of my GU shorts, which wouldn't be too much of a problem at all, and I'd look to await confirmation here before taking that short position down. Hopefully that occurs within the next 51 minutes, because if that doesn't happen within the next 51 minutes, we'll be in the same position as we were on GU, and GU could be actually a sign that potentially if this 4-hour candle closes bullish above that 4-hour 50 MA, we'll have the push up, retrace back into that 4-hour 50 MA for potentially continuation to a much better area that we'd be looking to short from based on higher time frame analysis, based on the fact we're in that higher time frame weekly order block. Refine that area down. You've got the only remaining 4-hour order block up at the highs, previous weekly highs as well, so it's all shaping up nicely for a very good looking higher time frame directional short position from the absolute highs. But nevertheless, we look to flow with the market and see what it provides us with. And then the question is, do I amend my setup based on what I now have? So that's what we have currently for AUD US dollar. The other pair that I was looking at was US dollar CAD. Another reason why could well be stopped out, break even on GU. Again, hence the reason for going break even on GU, is because I recognize that a good long position on the US dollar CAD could come from these lows based on the higher time frame directional bias. What we have here is a 4-hour order block that was finally created as a result of that break of an internal structure on the 4-hour time frame. So I mentioned yesterday that I would like to take US dollar CAD longs, but I don't have the confirmation just yet. We're overwhelmingly bearish on the 4-hour time frame. We're also respecting the 4-hour 50 MA perfectly to the downside. However, that doesn't quite correspond with what the DXY is suggesting to us. What I mean by that is if the DXY is looking to go bullish, probably not going to look to respect US dollar CAD short positions for too long, i.e. the short positions based on what looks good technically on US dollar CAD at the moment may not be a high probable setup, although it looks great on US dollar CAD as a standalone pair. So it's very important, imperative to really start using and focusing on that DXY to get your confirmation and your overall bias of where you believe price is looking to go. So with that said, I'm most certainly looking at this as a trading range. However, I am very much so more inclined to take the longs aside from the shorts. Longs trading in line with the higher time frame directional thought process of the DXY. So again, why this 4-hour order block, where it's the only 4-hour order block remaining in this entirety of the leg. And as you can see, I've remained to keep my order blocks on there just to give me that confidence and ego boost, to be quite honest, that my order blocks have indeed been holding on that 4-hour time frame. Prices come into those areas and pushing off. So therefore, if I start to repeat that process, i.e. brand new order block, push off, come back into a point of interest, look for the long, why could that not be a nice play? Even if it just is to that 4-hour 50 MA, look to manage the position by that, and depending on what the DXY is suggesting, potentially we could hold that higher and deeper into that 4-hour order block where the potential short may look to play out from. So at the moment on the 15-minute time frame, that only 4-hour order block is refined down. What we can see based on structure is it's not so much the most recent higher low on US dollar CAD, but again, it's down to interpretation of, do you see that as one full leg for a high, higher low for a higher high continuation? Or as I'm seeing it, it's just based on higher time frame directional bias, and this 15-minute order block is simply a refined area within that 4-hour order block. As you can see here, Fergat Mastery benefited from how I'll be looking to take that position as price comes down, of which, unfortunately for you guys, I will not be going into that degree of detail. However, nonetheless, I'm most certainly looking at US dollar CAD longs today, this afternoon, potentially into the week, as I forecast that DXY to start pushing bullish up towards that weekly 50 MA, as you can see there. So that's GU currently in the short, as I say. AU looking to scope potential shorts. UJ, nothing in the mix for UJ at the moment. It's doing what I need it to do. I need this 4-hour candle to close above that range, pull back again. That would be in line with DXY strength, so it would be quite nice for the DXY at some point to pull back for a long position to be taken on UJ. Until then, nothing that I'll be looking to do. EU, nice, still in the middle of nowhere. Where my position is sat is the only area currently where I'll be looking for price to come up to before looking for that short. And then the long positions, I probably won't entertain the longs as it stands at the moment, simply based on my overall bias of the DXY. I believe that if EU comes to these areas, and I do forecast there will be a movement off that area, potentially is even an entry to be had from that area, but I do believe it would be very much so short-lived as price starts to trend down on that 15-minute time frame, or the move away from the area, in my opinion, is that lower low, lower high continuation before price looks to make that lower low, and off it goes in line with the DSY. US dollar CAD, spoken about that position. GCAD. To be honest, not too much to talk about at the moment. Went through it with the group personally this morning of what I'd be looking for. If you're able to anticipate, or if you're able to make sense rather of my illustrations, then perfect, go for it. But I certainly won't be going over that now. And then GJ, nothing at the moment. Need to wait for a lot to happen on GJ before I look to entertain any positions, where that be long or short. So team, thank you very much for the insights, or well, rather for your support and your attention. It's me giving the insights, to be fair. Let's just double check what's going on here with GU. Still just about in that position. We'll see how that gets on. AU, how's that shaping up for the short? Just got the alert there waiting for that. And as I say, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate the support across the channels. All the very best in your trading journey, and you'll probably more than likely hear from me soon. Take care, Charles.